I think it's what everyone's grappling with in a lot of ways is just the change of SEO and organic traffic and that shifting more to like mentioned based search over like a click based search. I mean, I think we're all trying to figure out what some of that new world looks like and how search is changing. We've all kind of adapted in some way or another, at least, to what ChatGPT can do or what Claude can do. This is content engineering in a new way.
Welcome to the Exposure Ninja podcast, where I speak to growth leaders behind some of the most remarkable growth stories out there. I'm Charlie, CEO at Exposure Ninja, and today I'm joined by Josh Spilker, Head of Search Marketing at AirOps. Josh has led organic growth at high growth SaaS companies, including ClickUp, helping turn content and SEO from a traffic channel into a serious revenue driver. Today, we're unpacking what actually drives organic growth inside these fast moving SaaS companies, what worked, what didn't, how the playbook is changing, and all of Josh's experience. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Thanks for having me on.
Oh,
Excited to be here.
amazing. Yeah, so glad to have you. Josh, can you start off by telling us about your role as head of search marketing at AirOps? What does a head of search marketing actually do day to day, and what are the big meaty goals you're working on?
Yeah, for sure. So for us, it's a little bit different because we're like a SEO and content platform,
Mm.
an AI search platform. And so a lot of times I'm doing like SEO and search best practices for, our domain and for our platform. So that is part of my role. And then another big part of my role is having conversations like this, where I interview a lot of other leaders on our webinar series, gain insights from them, then try to have a good flywheel where I'm like applying everything I'm talking about into our actual work. That's sometimes successful, not all of the time. I also have to carve out bandwidth to implement all those things, but we get a lot of great ideas. So it's been exciting to be a part of AirOps so far in its growth.
Amazing. One of the things I've picked up on as well is like your webinars are everywhere. Like I see you on webinars all the time. I see your LinkedIn posts about webinars all the time. Is webinars like one of the big growth strategies under the hood at AirOps? Is that a specific channel that you go really hard for?
Yeah, it's definitely turned out that way. I think it's been unique in our situation because it has just been such an emerging market with so many changes around like SEO and AI search, especially in the last like what 2 years.
Mm.
So a lot of people are looking for new information and new insights, like kind of straight from the horse's mouth, for lack of a better word. So we're like bringing on a lot of experts, adding our points of view in there about what we're seeing work, like kind of in real time conversations. And so a lot of people have said it's been helpful. And I'll be honest, it was not necessarily like part of what I thought I'd be entering into when I went to AirOps, but it's been a fun challenge. And I've had a lot of fun talking to folks about what they're seeing. I used to be a journalist
Yeah.
in a previous life to where asking questions was like such a natural part of my day to day. So I think that has translated over pretty nicely.
Okay, now I have to ask, how did you end up going from journalist to head of search marketing? That's a big transition.
Yeah, so I mean, in college and university, I was doing journalism and magazines and all of that stuff, and then kind of took a break for a while, and then like really wanted to get back into like writing on a regular basis. So then I joined a couple publications, but then was a business journalist for like 3 years or so, and had done some like freelance stuff, and then that's where I kind of got my regular journalistic skills and writing was through that. And then we decided to make a move just for kind of quality of life reasons. And so then I was like, well, how do I apply this? Journalism, there's some pros and cons, but isn't always the highest paying role and has also been in through a lot of transitions. So I moved into like marketing, advertising agency, copywriting, that sort of thing. And then, joined a couple marketing teams in house and then like kind of slowly got involved more in SEO and content marketing.
I love that. There's, I think, many people who work in the content world that have that kind of journalist background or at least studied in the journalism side. So always interesting to hear how people
Yeah.
have grown their careers out of journalism through marketing and into head of search roles. It's a pretty big transition over time. Um, Josh, at the moment, are there specific marketing challenges that are taking up brain space for you? Are there things that you're grappling with in your current role?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's what everyone's grappling with in a lot of ways. It's just the change of SEO and organic traffic,
Mm,
and that shifting more to like a mentioned based search over like a click based search. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing, you know, we're seeing overall growth, but like some of that is more like brand searches versus like informational type searches or top of funnel searches. So I mean, I think we're all trying to figure out what some of that new world looks like and how search is changing. So yeah, I mean that's a big challenge for my role, just like
and
everybody else.
how is that puzzle going for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big learnings that I've had is that you have to have content that stands out. And so
Mhm,
we've really invested a lot more in research and data. Ocean on our team does a lot of that, of like coming out with reports. And in some of my previous roles, like at ClickUp and in some other places where I was like at SaaS tools and really kind of like project management and productivity tools, that wasn't really part of the equation. It was all just kind of about like informational, top of funnel, mid funnel, bottom funnel.
mhm.
But that kind of like data backed stuff gives you like a unique insight, gives something people something to cite and like share. And I would say that's part of the same equation with like our thought leadership content. So like I've written a few things like about, I'm sure we'll get into it, the concept of content engineering, but also like uh, I've written about how important like the middle funnel is. Our CEO has written a lot about what winning content means in this environment.
Mhm.
Um, we've been sharing our point of views on. He just recently wrote a post about how the Google shopping experience might change. So I think we're really trying to lean into what we're calling like frontier content or information gain content
Mhm.
to help really stand out our points of view. And so then that also helps like your branded search queries as well.
I love
In
that. It sounds like
addition, yeah, in addition to like some of the typical bottom middle funnel plays.
yeah, I love that. It sounds like you've got a really strong plan, top of funnel and bottom of funnel. I would actually love to talk about content engineering because this is the
Okay.
kind of phrase I've heard you say a lot of the time. I've heard you say it in your marketing and your webinars and something that you kind of talk about as a big concept. Can you take us through what it actually means, what it looks like?
Yeah, sure. Would love to. It's actually, I always like to put this disclaimer. It's actually not a new concept, but it is something I think I've come about more, it's become more important. And so
Mm,
the idea is that in the past, we've had like these content blocks that you can maybe engineer almost in a programmatic way or in a UX type way. And then about a year ago, I was like, there's something else happening with just how content is like being constructed based off of like low code tools and what you can do with like AI workflows and LLMs. And so the more I thought about it, I was like, this is kind of like, this is content engineering in a new way because all of our workflows have shifted away from like, at least on the SEO and content side, away from like typical keyword research, maybe like make a brief, do some like competitor comparisons, do some like see what else is ranking there, create a brief, send it to a writer, then like publish. At least that was like my MO across
mhm,
like my content teams. That then I would be doing that at like, I'd be having multiple writers do that and creating multiple briefs on multiple topics. And then we've all kind of adapted in some way or another, at least to what ChatGPT can do or what Claude can do. And then at AirOps, you're able to build these connected workflows across that to where you can like tackle a topic, do keyword research kind of all at once, and then create briefs all at once, and then decide if like you want to send this out to a writer or have some AI content that you then review. So there's like multiple different steps. And so then I was like, well, if you're starting to build these systems, like what is a good term for this? And yeah, I thought content engineering really fit the bill. And so I wrote a post about a year ago called "The Rise of the 10x Content Engineer," and it really took off. And it really, to be quite honest, and it really felt like a validation in the market and gave some
mhm,
language to what people were experiencing. And so we had like CMOs share it with like their SEO and content teams. Then folks were coming to us about like, well, how do I get started becoming a content engineer? Then some people in our team started like training. We have their cohort training where we go through what AirOps is and what you can do with our workflows. We have an AirOps University. We've started profiling folks on like billboards and such as content engineers. I'll drop this. Maybe we can include it in the description, but I just recently
Yeah.
wrote a retrospective of like a year later and just what that growth looks like. And it was one of those really rare moments I think that happens in a career, because I just remember like walking around the office and like, hey, is this content orchestration? That was something we'd be playing with. This is like content conducting, like what is it? And then I was like content engineer, and then the Silicon Valley thing was like a 10x engineer always like kind of grows your the potential and the ceiling of your business. And so I was like, that's what a content engineer can do too. As a 10x content engineer, it could really grow your content, not only production, but just your content systems. As you think about refresh, and if you think about updating, as you think about adding unique points of view into your old content, that's what a person really can do in this role. And it's been fun to see how that can even extend beyond just one person, but like a team of content engineers, people. Well, I'll just stop right there. I mean, we could keep going a bit there.
So the thing I would love to know is, firstly, all of the content engineering workflows that you build at AirOps, do you use the same workflows that you build and put out into the world for your own work?
Yeah, I mean, of course we try to, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so I have a very, I mean, I've built some of them. Ocean, who's a content engineer here on our team, or is moved into research. She built a lot of
Mhm.
them. We are bringing on some more content engineering help, but like, yeah, I mean, I've built, or we have a very extensive like webinar workflow that we've done. That's like outlines, guests, transcripts, all the way through to like social recaps, all of those things. We also have a typical kind of SEO content workflows where we like put in our keywords, put in like prompts or questions we want to tackle. We create a brief, we do research. I Part of why I do a lot of webinars is we bring in those like expert opinions, we weave those into our articles, and then yeah, we publish those too on the topics that matter for us and for search and for what people are talking about in the SEO community. So yeah, we definitely try to use them as much as possible.
I love that. Can we deep dive into one of them, your favorite or the webinar one if you like? Like what actually happens in the workflow and how does it work? Like how does someone operate it if they're opening it up and they're like, okay, I want to run this really awesome webinar. I've got the idea. Let me use a
Yeah.
workflow.
Do you want me to share it or screen share or no?
If you want to, then you're welcome to. We're videoing, so we can. But if you want to talk through it, then that's great. Some people will be listening without video.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll just talk through it. So,
Cool.
I'll talk about the webinar one. So it's like a two-part. We call them grids, which is like a spreadsheet essentially. But what I do is I just start with like the guest name, the webinar date, the time. Then
Mhm.
I add in like their LinkedIn information, and then I have like what I call a webinar planning notes, which is what I've usually done research from that person on like from their LinkedIn account, from other blog posts they've done, or any like guest speaking they've done. So I add those as notes. Then that helps me come up with the title. So we have a way to come up with the title using suggestions with an AirOps workflow, like based on like what's an engaging title, what's a serious title, what's a curiosity provoking title. So we have like
Mhm.
options for that. And then from there, it creates a brief that then populates. We use a tool called Luma, which is helps us like with registration. So then it populates, gives us sample copy to use on that Luma page. Then we have an email cadence, which is like an invite, like a reminder, and then like a day of email based off of that. And then we also use like social from that. We also can create social posts to then help us like promote our webinar. Um, and then on the backside, we take the transcript and then we have like a recap email. We have a takeaways. We also have a post, like social post as well, with like a video clip. It also identifies key quotes from the webinar that our workflows have deemed as like, oh, this is important for your audience. All of this is based in what we call our knowledge base and our brand kit, which is like,
Mhm.
here's what AirOps does. Here's our perspective on the world. Here's our content operations platform and our features. And also list our competitors, so we like know who to talk about or who to like focus in a different way. So then I have that recap, and then I'm able to share it out with our attendees and our audience. Um, and then something else I'm trying to build that we're not quite there yet with is a takeaway or like a lead magnet or content upgrade that like is based off of the webinar that then
Mhm.
people can use and put into action. So that's like, yeah, that's a sample workflow that I use.
I love this. So it's kind of like in that example, it's both coming up with the webinar, like the topic, the title, what's really going to be a hit, but the workflow also covers like some of the front end and the back end, like the promotion, the spin-offs that you're doing, all of the stuff that goes with it. So you're repurposing a piece of content across different types of mediums. Like you're also putting out shorts, you're also like putting out
Yeah.
snippets, clips, LinkedIn posts, emails, everything that would make something as big of a hit as it could be, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And what I like about it is it identifies some quotes that will either like fit in the article or that we then like turn into a YouTube clip or an Instagram reel
Mm.
or whatever. So then that gives our editors and production folks like a direction to go in. So it's not just like dumping out a raw transcript and be like, here, find the best stuff. Uh, I'm giving them some direction. I mean, like, what's important to
Yeah.
note in all this is like, this is not just like hit a play button. I mean, and it's like everything's done. Like, I have steps like in between there where I'm like, is this a good title or not? Like, and I'm choosing, is
Hmm.
this the angle I want to take? And then I'm choosing. So, like, I'm reviewing it along the way. It's just a lot of that work is done, and then I can decide like in our grid, you can edit the text like right there. So I can decide if I want that or not, or I like make a change or I make an edit. And like sometimes there are mistakes. So I'm always keeping an eye out for that too. But like, yeah, I mean, it makes the process so much easier from start to finish.
Yeah. But what you still have then for every workflow is basically the right folks working on it. It doesn't mean like you've just got one person operating the workflow. You actually might have an editor, you might have someone else involved, depending on what it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, a good example of this is like some other SEO content that I have where I'm like coming up with the keywords, some of the strategy, the angles. Then I
Mm.
have workflows where it's like, here's the outline. Then it may come up with like a first draft, and then I have an editor review it, and then they're like taking stuff out. They're making it shorter. They're making it longer. They're making sure it applies. But all of it is like, I mean, it's a way better start than like even like 2 or 3 years ago with a first draft because it's so grounded in our
Mhm.
brand and in our knowledge base and like our documents. And yeah, we have to keep that knowledge base up to date to make sure it operates at its top level. But yeah, I mean, it's light years ahead of where we were even a few years ago.
That's awesome. It sounds really cool. If we've got someone listening and they work, say, SEO and content side, but they're
Yeah.
used to doing like a high amount of production. They're trying to do a lot of quantity because they're trying to meet certain targets. They're putting out a lot of stuff into the world. But actually what they're really thinking about is how do I shift this from just content that I'm putting out into a growth engine for the business that's actually going to be driving leads or sales potentially if they're e-commerce. What is the piece of advice you would give them? Like, what's the first thing you would say, "Start to shift this"?
I would say to really look at what your customers are asking about, which sounds kind of trite, but it's something I'm trying to work more in my process is like, hey, what are they talking about on sales calls? Because like we
Mhm.
know the queries that people are putting in LLMs are like based a little bit off of what the traditional Google searches were, but like those are a lot longer and with context. And so
Yeah.
I would kind of like I would kind of keep that in mind and maybe not just do exactly what all the keyword tools are asking you to do, but also think about the trends that you're personally seeing. So I would say that's one thing, and then uh, secondarily, you really have to. So if that's like the tactical one, more of the strategic one is to really outline and think about each step of your process a little bit more than you would in the past. So um, I remember this happened to me back in the elementary school days of where our teacher asked us to like make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and she would do exactly what we said. And so we'd be like, well, you put a knife in the peanut butter jar or whatever. And she would just be like stabbing the peanut butter jar because we didn't tell her to like hold it or like twist the top and then pick up the knife and like put it in. And I'm bringing that up because there's a lot of stuff that I do like unconsciously with
Mm.
content because I've been doing it a long time. So it's like I know what a good meta title looks like. I know what a good meta description looks like. for the most part. I kind of know what structure I want for an informational article versus like a listicle versus like a really opinionated type piece. But I realized I hadn't um, I mean, in some ways I had written that stuff down, but like maybe not in like an SOP,
Mhm.
like formulaic way to that level, because that's really what you have to set up the systems for, is to think about each of those elements and how they're like dependent on each other. And that goes back to what I was talking about with like the systems thinking as far as a content engineer goes. We do suggest everyone like map out almost each of those steps, and to start small and then like map that out in a whiteboard, or you're on a physical whiteboard or your tool of choice, to then really think about what that process is. And I think that's a shift for a lot of folks like me who may have come from like a writing background or a content background compared to like a product management background, to where maybe some of that
Mhm.
stuff was a little bit more typical. But from a marketer perspective, that hasn't always been the case, of like identifying the process that granularly. And I think that's a really important thing to think about.
I love that advice. I'm a super process orientated person just by brain, by logic. So I
Yeah,
love the idea of building those workflows out in that kind of level. I also absolutely didn't think it was trite that you mentioned listening to customer calls or sales calls, whatever kind of calls you have. One of the things that we do internally for ourselves, but also for our clients, is go through all of the sales calls that we have. We use Grain. There's loads of transcript recorders that automatically transcript your
sure.
calls though. And then we're able to just put all of those transcripts through AI, analyze the trends and see what's different. Just a couple of weeks ago, we did that with some of our own sales calls. And in the same week, we had 3 different prospects asking us what happens with the top 3, top 5 results in Google? Do they always get referenced in ChatGPT, or is it totally unrelated and you never see like the top results in Google showing in the top results in ChatGPT answers for similar queries? And we just love that question because we had prospects who were thinking about just throwing out their whole Google strategy because it didn't matter and make any difference to ChatGPT, which is a bit of a misunderstanding of what's happening in the market and how search is working. And for
Hmm.
us, we this is amazing because there's no good data pieces out there on this. We can just do one that gives the kind of
Yeah,
data to the kinds of people in the kinds of industries that we speak to, and it's an amazing content piece that we can actually do. And that came just from 5, 6, 7, 8 sales calls transcripts. So I think you can never underestimate the interest and the points and questions that people are actually asking. And you don't even
right.
realize necessarily, especially if you're not front of house customer service or front of house sales, new business, or front of house account management, whatever it is that's in your business. You don't always exactly know what people ask, even if you do know broadly the trends of like the customer need, the customer problems. Actually, those very like minute questions and challenges can change month to month quite a lot depending on what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I have some thoughts on that, but you're leaving me hanging here. I mean, should we get rid of all? I mean, what is the overlap of Google search results and ChatGPT results? I mean, I have my thoughts, but I wanted to hear what you have.
Well, it seems like there is a reasonable overlap actually. When we looked into it, everything that we're seeing indicates that there's a kind of like 50 to 60% type of overlap most of the time, but it isn't like for like because the
Mm.
algorithm's obviously working very differently. We know that generative AI works very differently to how Google's sort of 10 blue links actually sorts and ranks websites. So we're seeing quite a lot of the time what's doing well in Google does well in ChatGPT, but it's not like your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in ChatGPT. But you tend to see those really like authoritative brands. So if you were searching things like best CRMs or best CRMs for small businesses, you're almost always going to see HubSpot. You're almost always going to see Monday.com. You see the same players, but you see them different orders spoken about differently, different things going on. So anyone who's actually been building that authority really strongly in search definitely helps. I think the other big misunderstanding is the majority of people are still searching and buying on Google, even if they
For
have
sure.
been in ChatGPT. There's such an audience overlap that throwing away your Google strategy is just don't throw away your Google strategy.
Yeah, yeah.
Josh, tell
I
me your
mean,
thoughts though.
I think we've seen something similar. I was trying to think if we had some research that I could immediately share, but I'm forgetting some of the conversations. But yes, there is. I think it's like a Venn diagram to your point, where it's not one for one. It's not the exact results. There is some similarities between, but not perfect. You're also seeing, like you said, the best brands who have like um, my friend Alex from Omniscient and Agency. I think he coined the term surround sound SEO like several years ago, to where it really is these brands who have like a comprehensive
Mhm.
branding strategy, who are investing in what we're calling offsite, which is like other places than your domain. So getting listed in several different listicles or articles to be mentioned as like the best CRM tool out there. So
Mhm.
you are seeing those top brands rise for that and be mentioned there. To your point about sales calls, though, like in some ways, it's nothing new as far as like the
Mm.
zero search keywords, and that was definitely a thing, 3 or 5 years ago, where hey, nobody's searching for this, but people are converting on this. Like, I think that's really important in your sales calls, your communities. Um, the people also ask questions, like newsletter content that you might read in your industry, like all of that could be like directionally accurate, and sometimes it only takes a search of one person to convert and to like make it all worth it for that one post. So it could be a search volume of one, but that one could be like really important if you're like your targeting is spot on, your topics are spot on. um, so that's something to definitely think about, and something I'm trying to like layer into our processes a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot to be said about the language that our customers use as well. So sometimes I think this is something we see with our clients' businesses a lot is there's the internal way of talking about something. Like when you're in the industry, you know the sector, you know the jargon. But sometimes
Right.
when you're working particularly with customers, with clients, and they are not in the sector in the same way as you, they're
Mhm.
not always using the same language. They know such minute detail about all of the things that they do that they forget that, you might not know all of the different materials that windows are built out of because you're not a window specialist. And that is
Right.
just something that they know off the top of their head that they easily see and say. Whereas when you're speaking to a customer, they're just thinking like, I want some really nice windows for my cottage, and that's literally the only thought going through my head, and I don't know what they need to be made out of. Like, the education piece that's needed can be really big as well, and I think
Mm.
those natural language picking up that natural language is becoming more important as we're thinking about what do people even ask ChatGPT? What are they trying to say? What are they trying to get at as well? So, I think there's a lot to be learned there, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it does. The queries are so much longer, right? In the LLMs.
Yeah.
Chris Long from Nectiv, he's done some good work on this. Ethan Smith from Graphite's also done some good studies on this, where the average LLM search, I think, is like 3 to 5 times longer than the average
Mm.
Google search. People are just adding like so much more context. So what's been a big shift that we talk to our clients about, but what I'm also trying to think about is like, it's no longer just optimizing like the one page for the one query or for the one keyword, because they're going to be synthesizing multiple pages to get to an answer. And so sometimes you might have like several pages contributing to what the LLM response is, or be cited like in different ways. So it's really kind of freeing in some ways, because then if you do have the right systems in place, you can create like maybe more content, or the content that you always wanted to get to but couldn't, uh, to help influence a lot of these answers. And um, I'm seeing a lot of like Google AI overviews and Google AI mode,
Mm.
kind of mimicking some of what maybe ChatGPT was doing or Perplexity was doing in the past. So I definitely people are definitely using traditional Google, and seeing a lot of those traditional links, but it's also expanding like quite a bit with just AI overviews and AI mode. And I see Google like continuing to go in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, what's your feeling about AI mode? How do you feel about it? Do you use it?
I use it on occasion if I have like more follow-up questions, I would say. And so I probably use it more on my phone than anywhere else, more for like personal searches. I'm not always diving into it on my laptop, or for work, because honestly, the AI overviews are giving me a lot. And then I'm also just kind of like seeing where we're appearing. So it's been fun to
Mhm.
see like, I recently, maybe this is interesting. I recently did a test of where I took a keyword that I was really aiming for from our domain, but I wrote a LinkedIn post about it, like a normal LinkedIn post, and I put
Mhm.
it like in the title, or I put it at the top, and wrote out some details about it, and then like linked to the article that we had. But then that post started appearing in like the AIO reviews, and then the LinkedIn post started appearing in the AIO reviews, and then our post from our domain was also starting to appear. So I'm starting to run some more tests around things like that, because at least in a lot of the B2B stuff that we deal with, uh, from our own domain and what the content I'm producing, but also for our clients, we are seeing like LinkedIn in particular being really important,
Mhm.
YouTube being really important for like those citations. Reddit's getting a lot of attention, and it should, for citations, but I'm seeing LinkedIn and YouTube having just as almost a large of effect as well.
Yeah, we've actually been running some experiments as well around whether if we post a similar piece of content on LinkedIn compared to a blog on the main website, how much authority each one is given, whether it's able to knock one out of the AI overviews compared to the
Mhm.
other. And that's been pretty interesting too. I actually would love to hear about your LinkedIn strategy because, Josh, I don't think there would be anyone listening to this podcast who hasn't seen a LinkedIn post from you. You're everywhere on LinkedIn.
Do you mean me, or do you mean the brand, or do you mean
I
both?
mean both. I mean both.
Okay.
I mean you and I mean the brand. So what's going on? Is there a big strategy going on behind your personal LinkedIn and behind the AirOps brand on LinkedIn?
Um, I, I I'm trying to think how
You
to
don't want to
answer.
tell all your secrets.
No, no. It's just kind of funny because like I was running our LinkedIn account and social media, but really it was mostly LinkedIn until like a couple months ago, and then we finally brought on a social media person to like just focus on that. So I'm kind of chuckling a bit because I'm probably like neutral on like social media. I'm like it's important, but I don't have like all these grand strategies. I mean, I think what has worked for us is at least particularly on LinkedIn is entering these conversations, like sharing what we have, and then asking like we do boost a few things if that's like a strategy. We've asked some influencers to post about some different initiatives that we have.
Mhm.
Our founders have been really involved in LinkedIn, and like that's become a really important channel for them, like sharing their own thoughts there. Um, so the webinars, if we're just kind of thinking about that, is it's become like kind of a core function for us, for me, is it also works really well on LinkedIn because you're like sharing some of the latest ideas. We try to have relevant guests on who probably are trying to be relevant on LinkedIn as well, or on their social, or be viewed as a thought leader. So then I'm trying to prep them on some stuff that they could share either beforehand or afterwards, or just tagging them. So we've created a lot of good relationships, and so I view it as, I think I described it as like a bunch of mini tornadoes like spinning like all at once. And so you're not
Yeah.
quite sure like what's going to take off, but if they all like kind of spin together, then they'll like become like a huge one. So I would say if there's any strategy, that would be it, is just trying to create like mini tornadoes around, so then they become like a superstorm or something.
It sounds to me like you're being a bit modest about everything that's being done on LinkedIn, but basically there's a lot going on.
Yeah, we have multiple things spinning there, and I mean, I would say that's from like more of the engagement side, but then
Yeah.
yeah, from the search side, um I've started to think of LinkedIn as what blogs were like 20 years ago or 15
Mhm.
years ago, to where we were all like, we probably have some young people in the audience who don't remember this, but there was a time where people just wrote blogs and they just posted
Yeah.
it and did not think about search results or did not think about it, but they were literally just sharing like what they thought about the world. And then there were these things called like blog rings, where you would like link to everybody on Blogger or whatever platform, WordPress, basic platform you were using, because people were just like generally interested in sharing like what they were learning or what they thought. And so then that whole ecosystem kind of merged into like a content marketing channel for B2B companies, which is where I find myself today. Um,
Mm.
all that to say is there could be a similar thing happening with LinkedIn, to where right now we're like, oh, it's just a place to share our thoughts or like what's immediately happening, and not really concerned with like influencing not only Google but like LLMs. But as we're starting to uncover, like people are asking relevant questions, and the LLMs are like surfacing LinkedIn as a source for this and as for citation. So I think there is a way, and I think it is happening, to where LinkedIn will become more of a search channel, to where we'll start posting with that end in mind of like influencing queries in search rather than just engagement. And I would say that's something that I'm pretty fascinated in right now. And just as our blogs on our websites have multiple different types of content, so sometimes it's just like a press release, announcement, thought leadership, but then also like a search article or an article geared towards search. I also think that LinkedIn and potentially other channels are going other a certain shift too. So that's
But
my big theory.
firstly, those were the days when we were just doing vlogs for the fun of doing vlogs on topics that we
Right.
cared about, or like writing about some film that we really liked and like pinging it to our friend. Love
Yeah.
those days. Secondly, I think you're really onto something, especially with how much we're seeing LinkedIn algorithms favor like personal profiles, but how often we're seeing LinkedIn posts get surfaced, even just in AI overviews, let alone getting into ChatGPT and Gemini and the other types of AI engines. And there's a lot to be said, I think, for the kind of influencer front person in businesses leading that. And we see, I think, marketing people are more visible now than they've ever been before with their
Right.
LinkedIn profiles. But on social generally, it isn't the case. You are the behind the scenes marketing person. That's quite rare. I think it's becoming more and more rare that there's behind the scenes marketers. And actually, more and more, we're seeing people out there actually giving thought leadership, putting comments, posts, engaging in conversations they care about in their industry. I think we're definitely moving in the direction where we're not only marketing businesses, we're marketing people within the businesses in marketing. Part of that is because of the direction search is going. Part of it, I think, is just buyer expectations that people expect others to be visible, and they want to know, they want to hear from the voices in the business as well, which I guess similar situation for both me and you, because we're both vocal voices within our respective businesses. So interesting.
Yeah. And we just came out with some research here recently of we're seeing pulse articles on LinkedIn being cited more than like post. I think it's like at a 65 to 35 split, something like that. So it's definitely interesting times. Yeah.
Yeah, Josh, I totally agree. One of the things that I'm interested in, though, is how things have changed between your current role at AirOps now and the strategies you were using before in your previous roles when you're at ClickUp. Is the market really different? Were you also thinking about like webinars, LinkedIn, AI, and all of these things before you came to AirOps?
Um, Short answer, no. I will say it's been a minute since I was at ClickUp. It's been like probably, I think I left in like 2019 or so. So yeah, I mean, but if we're thinking about like the span there, I was primarily focused on articles. Um, Specifically, I think I was writing on my own like 2 articles a week, which at the time was like a lot, specifically for search. But I really developed there what I think still holds today, something I'll call like an emphasis on the middle funnel. And so what I did at ClickUp in particular, and we've already mentioned it, was like all these like comparison and alternative lists, like best project management software, best to-do list, best all of these things, and then really like honing that motion down to where that was like huge search term, a huge comparisons were huge in project management, still are, because little glimpse behind the scenes, people are never satisfied with their project management tool. There's all the grass is always greener and they always want something else. They just think there has to be a better tool out there. So they're always like switching and looking and comparing.
Mhm.
So that in particular worked really well for that industry. But all that to say is like I'm doing similar stuff today because people are still making decisions, but they're these middle funnel and bottom funnel pages are being cited quite a bit by LLMs. And to your point earlier, like the people are using the total addressable market of search has not shrunk. It's actually expanded because people are using like Google and LLMs. So a lot of times, I think Gaetano Donardi, who's a really good SEO consultant, was walking this through with me a bit. People will like start in an LLM, then they might go to Google, then they might go back to an LLM to like confirm what they saw. But LLMs are really citing a lot of that bottom funnel, middle funnel content. So then it's converting at a lot higher rate. And so even that strategy that I kind of pioneered and actually did a course on it like a few years ago on like focusing on the middle funnel, like still really holds, and has been like a durable strategy, I would say, for a lot of brands to think about, especially like in B2B, but also maybe in like some D2C scenarios as well. Um,
Mm.
so yes, I would say the strategy is still similar. The tactics have obviously shifted. And then just, of course, like we've been chatting about, the rate of production that you can do has also, we've made immense gains on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny you say that about project management tools because we were having just the same discussion this very week. On Monday, our COO was speaking with COOs at 8 other agencies, all of whom were thinking about changing project management tool. I think it's constantly on the agenda because there is no perfect solution to it.
Right, right. I mean, the
But
same thing with like to-do list, that side of stuff too.
yeah, absolutely. I think we're still waiting for the market to produce the perfect project management tool, but everyone's needs are so different that maybe it will never happen.
Right,
um, I think what you're saying about the middle of the funnel is interesting as well because there's been so much panic about top of funnel and what's happening with the top of funnel and our AI overviews eating all of the top of funnel and our ads taking up a percentage of top of funnel that used to come through to websites as organic traffic and now it's not. Now it's part ads. Now it's some of it just question answered immediately and not coming through. But there's been less panic around the middle of funnel, even though AI is, I think, encroaching on a lot of middle of funnel terms now as well, especially when it comes to things like product comparisons. Those like this brand versus brand B, I
right,
think are happening in ChatGPT or whichever, AI tool of choice.
right. I would say the difference is that it's still having to pull from like the live web, for lack of a better word, to like make some of
Mhm.
those comparisons compared to just like, um, what is a couch? Like it's all in their like training data for stuff like that. But it's like, what is the best couch for 2026? As I'm looking around my apartment, picking out random items, like it's gonna like filter through some stuff, and maybe it will be like, uh, uh, it'll ping the web a little bit more so than it will just like what is something, which is the typical top of funnel post versus like that comparison. So then you have a better opportunity to influence its answers at the middle funnel and at the bottom funnel, because like in my industry and in a lot of like B2B SaaS industries, things are changing. People are adding new products, they're taking away products, they're adding features, they're
Mhm.
sunsetting features. All of those things are like evolving, and so that information has to be fresh. It has to retrieve new information, especially in these like high variable industries. And we've seen the results for that is that we have some research reports on that, of whereas the LLMs are pulling more fresh content. Fresh content is more important for LLMs in these high moving industries like SaaS and finance, compared to maybe like, WebMD is not like, what is diabetes, and WebMD, that's not going to like shift as much, right? And like the studies and research in medicine is going to be a little bit longer, and so there won't be as many updates on that.
It's interesting because just like you say, sometimes we see comparison tables, especially in ChatGPT, literally being pulled like directly through, almost word for word, like data sets coming from whether it's a comparison page or a blog post, depending on the sector, coming straight through into ChatGPT.
Right.
In AirOps, do you create content specifically like targeting this middle of the funnel, things like comparisons with your competitors, and how fresh are you keeping them?
Yes, we do create that. I'm trying to keep them as fresh as possible. I'm rolling
Mm,
out a bunch now as we speak, but like I was just having a chat about this the other day. Is it's as your content library grows, maintaining it becomes even more important. Keeping it up to date becomes even more important, and that is like your leverage and advantage. And so it's not just about like creating the content, it's refreshing it, keeping it up to date. And again, to bring it all back around, that's where like the content engineering and the systems come into place. So when you do have a new product feature, how are you going to update that across like your thousands of pages? Like you need an automated, semi-automated system to like be able to like insert it or to update it or make suggestions about where to update it. And that's the power of AI powered workflows, is to be able to like assess that and then to make suggestions on those relevant changes. And so then once you start getting to the middle funnel and the bottom funnel, like your product's not the only one changing, like all of your competitors' products are changing too, and they're shifting and adding new stuff. And so then you have to do more research to then update all of these posts. So it really becomes a strategic advantage if you're able to have the systems to be able to do all of these things, especially at the middle and bottom funnel in these very competitive industries. So I'm really seeing, I mean, I'm biased obviously, but I'm really seeing the need for a lot of these systems to be in place. I mean, well, I'm not biased. Like even if you use AirOps or not, I think there's a clear need that you're going to have to figure out this some way in whatever ways that you do it. And of course, we think AirOps is a good solution for that. But I've talked to teams who are building their own in-house solutions, those type of things. But yeah, I mean, it's a glaring need for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's something that businesses in the mid-market and enterprise particularly really grapple with, because it's
Mhm.
so easy for content to spiral out of control, particularly if you haven't worked in the business, your tenure's, fairly new, fairly short, then you're suddenly managing thousands of content pages that you didn't even know existed because you didn't originally create them.
Right.
And I think there's been like a trend in SEO of creating loads and loads and loads of content. Many businesses have now got more than they even realize that they've got. But managing it, refreshing it, I think is often a really overlooked strategy. There's always thinking about how do we add new stuff, as opposed to thinking about what's really, really performing for us, what needs to be refreshed all of the time, not only what do we add to it, as well as is all of, do we even need all of this content? Because
Yeah.
managing at scale is tough.
I mean, that's like one of the top use cases for AirOps is that refresh and optimization piece, because it's sexy to create all of it, but then it's like, well, how do I keep it performing? How do I keep it up to date? And then you really do need that infrastructure, that systems to be able to do it.
Cool. Josh, I'm going to take us on to the last question. It's a question I ask every guest who comes on the show.
Okay,
If
I don't know
you
what it is, so I'm
No,
excited.
it's a big surprise.
Okay.
If you could send a text message to yourself on the day that you started your career, what is the growth advice that you'd send?
Oh man, this is the question I should have looked at before. Um, what would be the tech? Say yes to more things than you are comfortable with. I think that would be the message. I think sometimes I'm probably a little bit more like glass half empty, probably a little bit more like dismissive of some stuff sometimes, or like not sure how things would play out. So uh yeah, just kind of say yes more often and like kind of try some of that stuff. So that would be the text message I would send myself.
Just go for it and see how it works out, both career and personally?
Probably more in career than personally. Uh I mean, I've taken some swings for sure, but yeah, I mean, I would say like probably more for like the experiments or just like extending yourself.
Mhm.
I think webinars for me is a good example where I was like, I'm not sure how this is going to work, and it's come out okay. There's been some other stuff where I've tried that hasn't worked as well. So like maybe just like with projects or like different ways of doing things, that would be say yes to some of that, or try be a little bit more open minded on some of that.
I absolutely love that. I think it's great advice for everyone, and there's a lot to be said for trying something new, pushing yourself outside the comfort zone. The worst that can happen is it didn't work, and you don't need to do it again, and you can try the next thing. Josh, it's
Yeah.
been absolutely amazing having you on the podcast. Thank you for sharing so much about everything you did at AirOps, ClickUps, all of the workflows you've been building there. If people want to find you, where can they find you online? Obviously, LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn, it's Josh Spilker. That's probably the best place. I do a newsletter for AirOps as well, so you can sign up for that. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Fantastic, Josh. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.